Hello and welcome back to another episode of The White Flag. I'm Camren Kerber alongside Mr. Aaron Self, who is at Chicago this past weekend. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm good. It is good to be back. It's good to be home. Traveling's always fun, but it's always nice to just be home and be back, you know?
Yeah. There's nothing better than your own bed, so.
This is true.
Yeah. So I gotta ask, how was the weekend in your eyes?
It was it was good till Sunday. and then it started raining, and then it just got wet and silly, and then it kind of sucked. But up until it started raining, it was cool, man.
Yeah, I think the Xfinity Race was fantastic. There's no denying that. That was, at least in my opinion, that was by far one of the best Xfinity Series races I've ever watched, and that was certainly the best Xfinity race of the year, in my opinion.
For sure.
But yeah, I think going into the Cup race, like I said, I think it was gonna be good, and then the rain came, and it just kind of ruined everything.
Yeah, I agree.
So, well, we got a bunch of news to get into. It
was a crazy news week.
Yeah, very crazy. Some news that we knew about, some news that were speculated, but anyway, let's waste no time and let's get straight into it.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, we saw a new prototype thing be released at the track in Chicago this past weekend. The ABB electric vehicle, the EV prototype, was released. Per John Probst, NASCAR says they have no plans for an EV series yet, but it's, quote, committed to the historic role of the combustion engine in racing, but change is accelerating all around us, and from a NASCAR perspective, we want to be in the driver's seat, end quote. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it kind of looks like what it was rumored to look like back at the Clash, but man, is it ugly. I mean, I've never been opposed to the EV stuff. I think eventually, just with ordinances and with the way like regulations and stuff are going, I think you got to accept that it's the way things have got to go eventually. Obviously, we're not there yet, but I think, probably by 2030, it's probably going to be EV everything, whether we like it or not, and that's just kind of the way it's going to go. But, yeah, I don't know. It'll just be interesting to see how it comes together. I haven't been paying much attention to it. Obviously, I love loud cars, and I love the combustion engine, but it's like they said, everything's changing. So that's just where I'm at with it.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, this is if and when they decide to run an EV series, this is definitely going to be something like Formula E. I don't think this at all is going to replace the combustion engine at all. If anything, it'll just be an addition to NASCAR. Because I think with the fan base that NASCAR has currently and stuff like that, being a NASCAR fan, you can attest to this. We don't like change. And something this big is going to turn a lot of people away. If they decide to make an electric car the new Cup Series car, I don't think people will tune into that. So due to my research, this EV prototype that was at Chicago that was released to the public apparently cost $1.5 million to make. That's a lot of money, especially when you look at how much a Cup Series car costs. So according to Denny Hamlin via his podcast, Action Sentimental, I believe he said last year that the Cup Series cars, the new cars, they cost around $300,000 sitting on the grid. So that's expensive in itself, but when you look at what this EV prototype is, it's $1.5 million. That's a lot. So I don't know what the funding is. I don't know who would be interested in that, but I guess it's coming. So I guess we got to be prepared. But I think it's cool. I think if they do decide to run a EV series, I think that we'll see some new companies come in, probably like a Tesla or something of that nature come in, and I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, the more people that want in, the better. I always say.
Yeah.
The more investors, the better.
So, we got some big news this week. It was announced last week. We touched on it last week that Hailie Deegan and AM Racing, they had some drama. Well, the drama is done and dusted, apparently. Hailie Deegan and AM Racing have mutually parted ways. AM Racing's official statement Monday said, quote, AM Racing and Hailie Deegan have decided to part ways effective immediately. We are grateful for Hailie's contributions and dedication as the driver of the number 15 Ford Mustang during her time with the race team. We wish Hailie the best in her future endeavors, and we look forward to her continued success on and off the track. Hailie Deegan's official statement said, quote, beginning this season, I had a lot of excitement and hope taking my next step in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. It's been something I've been working towards for years, and I've always dreamed about. I worked hard to prepare for the season after the team pursued me to drive their car. Unfortunately, it has not turned out the way I expected. There are always several reasons within a race team as why things don't do or do not work. But sadly, our goals no longer align. With that being said, myself and AM Racing will be parting ways. The only thing I am focused on is getting back to being competitive. That is all that matters to me. I'm working as quickly as possible to find best opportunities to get back to the track. I'm thankful for the following I have and everyone who supports me. It's truly only me that knows the whole story and what I need to do to succeed. See you at the track soon. End quote. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's something that we probably knew was going to happen just with the way we kind of were piecing everything together last week. It seemed like this was coming. And I think Ryan Preece might have just found his ride for next year. No, I think it was probably as amicable as it could have been with kind of what we saw was going on with, like, the drama between the team and the driver and the unfollowing on social media. I think they handled it as professionally as they could. It sounded like there was a lot of frustration there. So, it just... Sorry, I lost my train of thought. It seemed like there was a lot of frustration there, so it seemed like they all handled it very professionally. But I don't think there was much surprise that with the way that they were handling the situation, that Deegan was probably going to be out of the seat. Especially when Logano goes out, and no, he wasn't up there all day at all, but he was in the top 20 all day, and then he goes out and he ekes out an 8th place finish there at the end. Which at road courses, you can argue that strategy is about as of a legitimate top 10 finish as there is, because we see it all the time where someone's kind of nowhere for most of the day, and then they kind of capitalize on the late race chaos and everybody fighting for position, and they just kind of eke their way up to a solid finish. So that's not it's not out of character way to do things at a road course, and So Logano, I would argue that was a very legitimate, genuine top 10. And I think when, you go out and a driver who, albeit is a champion of the sport, I understand, but when any driver can go out and they can just, put the hammer down and run 10th or run top 10 in their first start with the team, they don't know the crew. They don't know the crew chief. Logano hasn't driven that car in a minute. He doesn't know the spotter. He's not familiar with the spotter. He's got multiple spotters because he's on a road course. He's on a unique gimmicky track. And so when you can just go out and put your head down and run top 10, I'm not surprised that the team's next move is to fire Hailie Deegan.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a lot to dissect here. Apparently, obviously, we've seen, the results. The results don't look good on Hailie's part. But I think when you look at it, there's definitely a lot of things to look into. AM Racing is not a team that has been around for a long time. This is a team that is fairly new. If I'm not mistaken, this I think is like their third or fourth year as a team.
Second. In the Xfinity series, it's their second.
So that just makes it worse. So they had Brett Moffitt. They did decent, I would say. And I think
he was a bubble driver.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I think the thing is their mistake was letting him go. And I don't mean letting him go and bringing in Deegan. I think their mistake was letting him go and replacing him with Deegan. I think if they kept him and brought Hailie in, it would have helped Hailie have someone to feed off of and learn this car.
Exactly. Yeah, you would be racing. You would be teammates with a champion.
Exactly. And I think when you're a new team and you don't know specifically where your performance is, and I said last week that AM Racing stopped their funding with their alliance with Stewart-Haas Racing. That is incredibly true. So their technical alliance, their engines and stuff are coming from somewhere different. Where, I personally don't know. But that also changes things. You're instead of getting a car that is essentially a powerhouse car, you're getting something else that's from wherever. So it that also has an aspect to it that's different. But Hailie is one that is, she's still young, she's still learning this car. Some of these places that they've gone to so far this year are her first time in a car or even a truck. Because I don't believe the truck series runs at Loudon. To my knowledge.
Anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
So, so some of these places that she went to, she was going there for the first time. And as a race team, it is very difficult to figure out where your performance is with a rookie driver, because she doesn't know specifically, what to ask for. She doesn't know how the car is going to respond to some of these places because she's never been there before. So it's just a lose-lose situation. Obviously they need to figure out where their performance is from, a team standpoint. And I think that what they're going to see throughout the rest of the season, obviously, they're just going to put drivers in there. But, that's a good reason for them to figure out where they stand as a team and move forward. It's really unfortunate for Hailie. I think a lot of people, especially her fans, were very excited and very eager to see how she would do in the Xfinity Series, giving her debut. She finished 13th. But again, as I said, SS Greenlight, that team is been around for a while. That team has a very well structured. That's a very well structured team, and that's a very structured organization that has a technical alliance with Stewart-Haas Racing. So, I think if you put Hailie in a car that has the resources and the structure, I think she'll perform better, as opposed to an AM Racing that lost or doesn't have their technical alliance with the team, and they're still very new, and they got rid of one of their drivers that easily kind of helped them stay afloat, I think, in my opinion. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, SS Greenlight also, at that point in time, and I believe for Hailie's start as well, had an alliance with Stewart Haas Racing in select events, because remember that team went out with Cole Custer in 2022, and they won Auto Club.
Yeah. Like I said, they still currently have a technical alliance with Stewart Haas Racing. I think when you look at it, it's just a multitude of factors. And I know a lot of people just want to put the blame on Hailie, but you just can't do that. I found an excerpt from X, formerly known as Twitter, that Joey Logano was asked what he wanted changed to the car in Chicago. He explained what was wrong with the car, and the crew chief said, "I can do this," and it was the wrong adjustment. And Logano had to tell him that was the wrong adjustment. So, that certainly doesn't help when you have a crew chief that doesn't know exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, it's like I said. It's like I said last week when you're not when you put a slow driver in a slow car, you're not going to get better because that driver has never driven fast cars. They don't know what they need. When you put a guy like Logano in, like I said last week, if he's driven fast cars his entire career, he knows what they need. And I think Barry getting in the car at Pocono, which was, I probably spoiled their next piece of news, but I think that's also going to help because Barry's driven for Stewart Haas, JRM, these fast teams that they know how to build good cars. So he's going to be able to kind of point them in the right direction. And I think that's what they need to do, the whole year.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is the guys in the back of the field, that is like a wasp's nest. It is pure chaos back there. You got guys that are trying to make the top 30 in points and owners' points. You got guys that have never driven back there. You've got guys that are coming in, trying to figure out what they're worth. You got guys back there like Hailie Deegan who are rookies in a not so great car. Now look, you stick Joey Logano in that car, all those guys that are back there, they're going to race Joey Logano differently than they would Hailie Deegan. And the reason for that is because Joey Logano, obviously, is very successful. He's a Cup Series champion. They're not going to race Joey Logano the same way they're going to race Hailie Deegan. Plain and simple. And they're not going to race Hailie Deegan the same way that they did Joey Logano.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, you got to look at it that way as well. So, like I said, there's a lot of factors that go into this. Me personally, I said it last week, I think she needs to run dirt, which, I don't know, maybe she listened to our episode.
Maybe she did, because I saw that on Instagram too. And when I saw that, my first thought when I saw that was quick.
Yeah. So, I don't know where she finished, but she did qualify second. So, she's not a bad driver. I think a lot of people just want to say that she's a bad driver. And they want to call her Danica 2.0, but Danica was a different head case. This is a young driver that's still trying to learn the ropes. And I think, like I said last week, she needs to run some dirt races. She's got to get some stuff figured out, run some sim. Go see what you can get into. Go get track time. Track time is everything. At this point, it doesn't really matter what it is, just track time in general. It can be a late model. It could be a dirt car. It could be, an IMSA car. Go work on your road course stuff. It could be anything at this point. but go work on stuff, and then, if you get an offer that seems worth taking, go take it. And if you see an improvement, then you did something right. If you didn't, then go back to the drawing board and do it all over again, until you see those results. So, yeah, I think that's about it with Hailie Deegan and the AM racing thing. So, here's some interesting news that, in my opinion, is incredibly interesting. I would love to see what the paycheck was given. Rodney Childers, we speculated, could potentially go to the Wood brothers to rekindle their relationship with Josh Berry, his current driver that he's currently crew chiefing with. But that's not the case. Rodney Childers has signed with Spire Motorsports to be the new crew chief for Corey LaJoie in 2025. What are your thoughts on that?
That Andretti money is insane. That they are able to buy Rodney Childers. Wow. I will give it to Spire. They are forking over an arm and a leg trying to build this organization into something of an empire. I mean, it's not the craziest hire that they've made. Recently they run 3 full-time trucks. They run a part-time Xfinity car. They run 3 full-time Cup cars. They're bringing in probably one of the top 30 crew chiefs of all time, if not top 20. A championship crew chief at the Cup Series level, winner of, my God, probably 30, 40 races, and just, and who has been at, a powerhouse team, who knows, what the shop should look like at a powerhouse organization, what the dynamic should look like at a powerhouse organization. Someone who can kind of look at the brass and say, like, hey, like, this is what things look like at Stewart-Haas. If you want to be an empire, things got to look like this. And, and moreover, just from a performance aspect, just like, hey, like, this is what we can do to the cars. This is that. So I think it's a great move for Spire. I feel like, it's obviously subjective. This is just my opinion. This isn't factual in any way. But I personally feel like his talent is wasted at a place like Spire Motorsports, as Spire has made big Hail Mary decisions like this before, and their performance hasn't seemed to improve drastically. But baby steps. It'll be cool to see kind of how it goes, especially since he's going to be the crew chief for LaJoie, and I think if anything that proves that this team is still invested in LaJoie, and they still want to see him succeed. I really thought this would be the year he'd be on the hot seat with 2 rookie teammates, but it sounds like they're going to give him another shot, and they're going to give him one of the greatest crew chiefs ever. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
So my opinion on this is, you just kind of mentioned it. We all kind of thought that Corey LaJoie's career kind of banked on how this season went. As you said, it looks like they're gonna continue their relationship together. But I think next year, 2025, is going to be the make it or break it year for Corey LaJoie. Because if you can't cut it with a crew chief that is won with a plethora of drivers at the top level, and is a championship winning crew chief nonetheless, you can't make it anywhere. Plain and simple. If you can't cut it with a crew chief that you've currently got, okay. But if you can't cut it with a championship winning crew chief, that's won, as you said, 40 some odd races, won the championship with Kevin Harvick, pretty much dominated the 2020 season with Kevin Harvick. you got something wrong with you if you can't make it work with a guy that's as knowledgeable as Rodney Childers. But I'm disappointed that I'm disappointed that Rodney doesn't go and go to the Wood Brothers. I thought that Rodney with a team like the Wood Brothers would have been absolutely astronomical in my opinion. Give him one car to focus on, and that car probably would have had more success than it's seen in its history since the 60s. I don't know. I'm disappointed because I figure, the driver that he's lined up with isn't the greatest at the moment, but Barry's got a lot of potential. Core of the Joy, I don't know, but I guess the saying is money talks. So, money talks. Well, per Adam Stern via Twitter, NBC got 3.87 million viewers for Sunday's Chicago street course. That's including streaming, compared to last year, which isn't fully direct after a mid-race red flag this year. But 2023's event got nearly 4.8 million viewers. Sunday's viewership was still 35% higher than the average NASCAR race on NBC. What are your thoughts on that?
Good. It seems like we're trending up like we have been. I think that's great. I think that's great for the sport. I think that's great for the event. I think with a new event, and it's any event in its infancy, TV numbers are going to be really important in determining whether that track is going to be a mainstay in the sport or whether that track is even going to come back for another year. But I think when you have when you have a positive increase in TV numbers linearly over the course of time, I think that's really going to help the event come back for next year. It seems like being there at the event this weekend, logistically, it was so much better. Last year, they really just kind of, we went to our places where our tickets were, and they really just kind of locked us in. When you were there, like you were there. They had a couple food stands, but for the most part, like you were there. But this year, it was like they had the fan plaza. You could travel more freely. You could go around and do different things. Logistically, and especially with the fact that it wasn't raining for most of the day. Saturday too. Saturday was dry. Saturday last year was awful. Saturday last year was flooded. Literally like water up to our shins, flooded. It was just logistically, it was so much better this year. So I think, obviously, from experience, the in-person product was better. On TV, I guess, apparently, from what the numbers are telling us, the on TV product was better. So I think all signs point to this event coming back, and I think it's a good little race. And I think it can hang around for quite a while, and I don't think it's a bad little show. What about you?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. As I said, the coverage with NBC compared to Fox is astronomically different.
It's night and day.
It's there's you can definitely tell a difference. The sport is taken more seriously. It's taken more professionally, in my opinion. And the fact that we've had 3 rain instances so far with NBC. Well, no, 2. One specifically where we thought that the race was going to be called. And it wasn't. And I think, you look back to the Coke 600, which was broadcast on Fox. They were just past halfway, and they said, nope, we're done. And obviously, I don't think that was a NASCAR decision. I think that was a Fox decision. So I think when you look at it, NBC is definitely more patient when it comes to weather. They know that this stuff happens, and they realize that regardless, they're still getting their money's worth. This right here is a big event, as you said. I saw it on social media. They said that people from 30 different countries and all 50 states were there. That's pretty incredible in my opinion.
Which is insane. Like who's in from Hawaii, bro?
Yeah.
Like who's in from Hawaii? Like I need to know.
And that I think says a lot about where this sport is. And when, like I said, the viewership on Sunday, from somebody who watched both races on TV this past weekend, I think when you look at how they handled the rain delay was fantastic. Instead of showing, a past race or whatnot, like I typically do, they went around and they interviewed a bunch of drivers. How did you think the visibility was? How do you think that this is going to go when we go back green? Eat food. They're eating food. They're talking about how the drivers, specifically Noah, they were talking to Noah Gragson. They're like, hey, we know this time last year you went into the barriers at turn 6. He's like, yeah, I got PTSD from turn 6. And it was just great. They were talking to all the drivers, big teams, small teams. They would talk to a plethora of drivers. They talked about a lot of storylines going into the weekend. They talked about what this race could look like if they go back green and the track is completely wet. And I think that it was great coverage. It really brought a lot of info to the viewer. It also, they talked about what the spray does. They talked about a lot of things, and I think that right there shows how much NBC cares compared to Fox, and I think that says a lot about where this sport's going. So I don't know. I think that it's unfortunate that it obviously went down a little bit, but I think obviously, we lost a lot of people during the red flag, but NBC is 10 out of 10 in my book. So, the coverage is great. I think the other thing that makes it stand out is they do the like radio style with Mike Bagley. They got guys that are stationed around the track that they toss it to, and I think that makes it more exciting as well. Well, Bubba Wallace was fined $50,000 for slamming into the side of Alex Bowman on the cooldown lap with window nets down. What are your thoughts on that?
I like this move. I mean, I think 50,000 is a bit excessive, but I think giving him a points penalty at this point in the season with where he's running points is a bad move, just because it affects the it would affect the course of the championship potentially. Now, one might argue, yeah, he screwed up. He deserves to have his championship taken away or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, this is it's fair not just for Bubba, but for the entirety of the sport, because there's people he's racing around in points. There's people. I mean, there's so much that goes into it, and yeah. So I think the 50,000's a good call. I know a lot of people were questioning, the legitimacy or the fairness of it because of incidents that have happened before after the flag, and I think and a lot of people pointed to the inaugural Roval race where Truex went after Johnson after the checkered flag waved, and I think my argument with that, I think the big thing with that is that Johnson's window net was still up, and Bowman's wasn't. And Bowman was not just spun out; he was pushed into the wall, and I think that's kind of where kind of I think that's where it was problematic. But yeah. So overall, I like this. I don't think this is bad. I think this is fair. I think this is warranted. I think 50 is a bit excessive. But then again, you're talking to the same sanctioning body that fined Ricky 75 for punching some guy in the face. So, maybe this is just the new world order. But
Yeah.
I definitely think this is fair.
Yeah, I think so. Here's my take on this. Obviously, that kind of stuff is absolutely uncalled for. If you go back and listen to our Richmond episode, I called out Martin Truex Jr. for doing what he's doing, what he did there. Bumping somebody on the cooldown lap is not safe. I know a lot of people say that doesn't really matter. That nobody's gonna get hurt. That's a load of bullshit. There's a lot of drivers that can get hurt. The whole instance between Brad Keselowski and Matt Kenseth in 2014 was because Keselowski rear-ended Matt Kenseth coming onto pit road at like 30 miles an hour, and he had his belts off. It's unsafe, plain and simple. Bubba Wallace slammed the side of Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman had his window net down and his arm out the window. He was in celebration mode. Apparently, NASCAR looked at the tape and said that when Bubba slammed into Bowman, the wheel came out of his hand. So, I'm sorry, that's not safe. You can break a finger, you can break a wrist. That kind of stuff is uncalled for. I think the fine is warranted there. I do want to say that I know you Chase Elliott haters are going to go ape shit, but the difference between Bubba Wallace doing what he did to Bowman and Chase Elliott doing what he did to Suarez is Suarez didn't have his belts off. You could see it. Not to mention, he just door slammed him. It wasn't even super hard. The wheel didn't come out of his hand. He just nudged him. Then brake checked him going into the next corner. Look, obviously I'm speaking from slight bias because I'm an Elliott fan, but when you really look at it, I mean, what he did compared to what Bubba Wallace did was not as egregious, in my opinion. And I think anybody with their head on their shoulders will agree to that. NASCAR did say that they plan to have a talk with Chase Elliott about his retaliation with Daniel Suarez. So he didn't get off scot-free. Probably said, hey, don't do that again, or we'll probably fine you. But this isn't the first time that we've seen instances with Bubba Wallace slamming cars on the cooldown lap or during the race or whatnot.
That's another thing that I don't mean to interrupt, but that's another thing I mentioned in a Facebook comment when people were referencing the Truex thing at the Roval. I think prior offenses, go into this a lot. And Bubba, I mean, I love the guy to death. Great driver. I would consider myself a fan. But the dude has a temper, and he does shit like this constantly. Whereas Truex, I'm hard pressed to remember a time that Truex has ever went after anybody maliciously. I think maybe he went after Kane one time when he was driving the 56, but I just think, Truex has always been a guy who's carried himself, with respect and dignity and class, and Bubba, he does stuff like this a lot, and he's done something like this before with Bowman, albeit it was outside of the car, but so I think prior offenses, and the track record you have, I think that plays a big role in it for sure.
I think another thing is what happened to Bubba and Bowman in the middle of the race. It happened in the middle of the race. So he just kind of sat and stewed on this for, a while.
Premeditated, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like it didn't happen like 10 minutes prior. And I think that's the other thing when you look at what happened with Chase Elliott and Daniel Suarez. That was coming to the checkered flag on the last corner of the last lap. That I think is warranted. That's like, hey man, what the hell? Bubba Wallace. I mean that happened. 30 some odd laps ago.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it warranted, but I would say it's understood because it was in the heat of the moment. Like, it just happened. The race just ended. It's like what the hell? But yeah, I agree with what you're saying that Bubba was like, dude thought about it for like upwards of an hour.
Yeah.
Like upwards of an hour. Yeah.
So, again, I think 50,000 is a little bit obscure, but I also thought 75,000 for punching somebody in the face is also a little bit much. But that's NASCAR's. I don't know. That's NASCAR's ruling, I guess. I don't know. But yeah. I think again, I think a lot of people People find a way to hate Bubba Wallace. I mean, plain and simple, people find a way to hate Chase Elliott too. So when you got two of the most controversial drivers in the sport doing things like this, it's going to get attention like right away. So unfortunately, I know the people who think that Bubba Wallace should be parked for the rest of the season or be kicked out of NASCAR. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. Sorry. He's going to have to do this about 50 more times for them to finally say enough's enough. But,
yeah.
Plain and simple. So, big news. I'm incredibly happy about this as a fan, but I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are on this. Noah Gragson has found a new home for 2025 and beyond. Noah Gragson has signed with Front Row Motorsports for 2025 and beyond. The number and the crew chief will be announced at a later date. What are your thoughts on that?
Hey man, I like this. I like this move. I think Noah's going to thrive here. I think Front Row Motorsports is a good organization. I think he's actually getting an upgrade in equipment going to this crew. I think it's a good organization. I think they're growing. I think they put up good numbers, and I think that Noah is really going to thrive at a place like Front Row Motorsports. I think he's going to bring a lot to that team, and I think that team's going to bring a lot to Noah, and I think it's going to be a great relationship. I think they're really going to help each other. They're really going to be able to feed off each other, and I think Noah's going to be on the bubble. I think Noah, at the very minimum, he's going to be on the bubble with this team, and I think it's. I think this is a great move, and I understand why you would be excited as a Noah fan. I'm excited, not as a Noah fan, but I'm excited as a Front Row Motorsports fan. I think this is a great move, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited. From the interviews that I saw with Front Row Motorsports team owner Bob Jenkins, apparently Ford has upgraded their tier level. They're now going to be a tier 1 level performance.
They were tier 1 to open the year. That was at the start of this year. They became tier 1.
Yeah. So they're going to remain a tier 1 team. I'm not entirely sure where SHR ranks on that list. I would assume tier 2, tier 3. So this is a big upgrade. I'm very happy that he's going to Front Row Motorsports. I think, obviously there were a bunch of rumors that he was going to go to RCR, and I think just with the way that the RCR is right now, I think that it would just be wasted money, and a waste of talent in Noah Gregson's part. So, I'm very happy for this. I think Front Row is definitely a growing organization. And I don't know who else is going to be in the car. They got one more charter to announce. But I think, they got Todd Gilliland. They're going to have Noah Gragson, and they're going to have somebody else. So it seems like if they go with another rookie, or if they go with a rookie or another young guy, it's going to be a fully young lineup for front row, so they're definitely in for the long haul, and that's huge.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, Shane Van Gisbergen becomes the first driver to lead in 5 of their first 6 starts in NASCAR history. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's cool, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a pessimist, but I feel like anyone can do that just by staying out, long on green flag pit cycles. But it's cool. Shane's a good driver. He's good on road courses. Obviously, that's where most of his starts have been on road courses. Obviously, he ran the 600 as well. I believe that was his only oval start with the team. But yeah, I think it's just indicative of Shane's talent behind the wheel of a race car. And I think it's a great fit for him over there.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I don't know, I kind of feel like at this point they kind of nitpick and they find something to celebrate.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I didn't want to be the one to be like, oh, whatever, he led laps, so what? But I was kind of alluding to that same thing.
Yeah,
anyone can do it. Just run long on green flag pit stops.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a huge SVG fan. I think, he's a great driver and all that. But I don't know. Like I said, I feel like they kind of find stuff to celebrate for really like no reason. But I mean, I think the better news here should have been, and I guess we'll talk about it since I'm assuming nobody else will. But this was the first race that this race this past weekend was the first race that non-American drivers and non-full-time drivers swept the stages. You had SVG won stage 1, and then Joey Hand won stage 2.
That's huge.
Yeah. So, that's pretty crazy in my opinion.
Wait, what's Joey Hand? I thought he was American.
I don't think so. I thought he was English.
Huh.
Nah. I mean, you could fact check that if you want. I don't.
No, he's from over where you're at. He's from Sacramento.
Oh, all right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm stupid.
But I mean, ringers. You could say ringers, and it would still be the same. The same thing. They're both,
Yeah. Well, 2 non-full-time drivers, I should say, swept the stages. That was the storyline. My bad. Yeah. So that's the first time that's ever happened. 2 non-full-time drivers swept the stages. That's pretty impressive. So. Here's also something pretty cool. According to Adam Stern of the Fox Business Journal, Adam Alexander is currently the favorite to land the lead play-by-play role for the CW's NASCAR Xfinity Series coverage in 2025. What are your thoughts on that?
How many races do they get?
They get the full season in 2025.
Oh my god. Adam Alexander calling a full season of races? I don't know if I could handle that.
What's wrong with Adam?
I don't know, man. He gets a little too excited sometimes, I feel like. And I think he has I think it would really depend if I'm being honest and trying to be as favorable as I can. It's going to depend a lot who they pit with him. I think he needs 2 good guys around him to kind of keep him on the rails. I think he has a tendency to kind of go off the rails a little bit and get out of hand. I think he needs 2 good experienced, level-headed guys around him, and I think that would be an okay Booth. But I think if you give him the lead and then bring in just two kind of whatever guys, I think that is I don't think that's going to be a good booth. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, in my personal opinion, I would rather have a guy that gets a little too excited than somebody like a Jamie Little who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about 90% of the time. I think you kind of want the energy in the booth to be kind of uppity. In my opinion, I think that it brings what you're watching. It makes what you're watching seem more important and seem like it matters. In my opinion, and when you look at what the Fox broadcast is, with I'm just using this as an example. I'm not harping on them, but when you look at the ARCA coverage or the truck coverage, it's very downplayed. I guess I could say. To me, I watched the ARCA race at Daytona, the season opener for ARCA, earlier this year, and I genuinely almost fell asleep. It didn't seem like it mattered. It didn't seem like it was the biggest race of their season. It seemed like it was just a race that was supposed to be run at 4 a.m. that nobody was gonna watch. And, that to me, I feel like is super unprofessional. I think, obviously, as you mentioned it, Adam does get a little carried away. But so does everybody else. I guess if you go back, you could probably find instances where Mike Joy's kind of gone off the rails and said something, and they're like, "Wait, what? What? Why?"
Yeah, that's fair. But I don't know. I've always. No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I've always been partial to just the really kind of calm, chill guys in the booth. Guys like maybe a Mike Joy, or guys definitely like a Jamie McMurray, or an Andy Petrie, or a Matt Kenseth. Or I think people like that, just those kind of those calm guys that can just kind of keep it buttoned up, like a Kevin Harvick. I just, I'm really partial to guys like that. That is what I enjoy watching. I don't think have three of those guys, but I think have one or two of those guys, and then have one guy who's like, holy shit, he's passing him. I think if you have one guy like that, and then two guys who are I think if you have one guy like a Dale Jr., one guy that's kind of a knowledgeable kind of analyst type, and then one kind of main head guy who's just kind of buttoned up and kind of on the rails and just calm and collected, I think that's your perfect booth right there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think back to the famous booth that we all had growing up in the Fox booth. You had Mike Joy, who is, as you would put it, the buttoned up, the calm and collected guy. Early in the early 2000s, you would have, DW, who was screaming and hollering at just about everything, and then you'd have Larry Mack that would kind of join in on him, just a little bit. So I don't know. I don't know. I think Adam in the booth. I'll say this to kind of sum it up. I would prefer Adam Alexander over Jamie Little. I would prefer Adam Alexander over, someone like a Mike Joy. And the reason I say that is because Mike Joy is towards the end of his career. I think sticking him in something to run full time for 38 weeks in a row, I think is a bit much for somebody of his age. So I'll take Adam Alexander. I don't know who else is currently in the pool for that role, but I wouldn't be opposed to having him in the booth.
I miss Vince Welch. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I miss Vince Welch.
Well, I mean, I think somebody who would do really well in that position, in my opinion, would be someone like a Dr. Jerry Punch.
Yeah, I could get behind that for sure.
And I don't know if you remember, but like like mid 2000s, like 2010s, ESPN, I think it was, what was his name? It was Marty something. He's an older guy. His name was Marty.
Um,
I want to say Marty Smith, but I know it's not Marty Smith.
Was it Marty Snyder, Myatt's dad?
No. Hold on. I'm gonna try and look it up.
I know who you're talking about. I can see his face. Because he was on for quite a while. He was on like back in the early 2000s on NBC's coverage.
Marty Reed.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, his go-to thing was, "Oh, look out." Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, I don't know who's in the pool to run for that, but to run for the play-by-play, but I'm all for it, man. I'm excited for it. So, I guess time will tell, see who they pick. But I will say this: it'll be a huge loss for Fox if they lose Adam Alexander, because I believe he was poised to be the guy that was going to replace Mike Joy in for Cup. So if they lose him to the CW, they're pretty screwed.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, that is it for news. We will move on to driver and menace of the day. All right, driver and menace of the day. Who you got?
Driver of the day. Shoot. Well, I know who my menaces are. It's. I'll start there. Bad news first, I guess. It's a tie between Briscoe and Barry. I want to give it to SHR as a whole just for laughs, but I mean, Priest was really quiet, and Noah didn't do anything crazy. But really, I mean, Barry and Briscoe, I mean, I swear to God, they changed the outcome of the race probably about 5 or 6 times over the course of that race, and it wasn't even a full distance race either. It got shortened, and they still made the impact that they did. I mean, the wrecking, the spinning, the causing cautions, the slowing people up because they're getting turned around. I mean, holy crap. I mean, it was rough. And my driver, oh man. You know what? Let me give it to Alex Bowman. First win in over 2 years. First win on a road course. I always said, and I've said this in a lot of the group chats since Sunday, I've always said that Bowman was going to win on a road course soon, and he was long overdue for a road course win, and his next win would have probably been at a road course. But I did not think it was going to be Chicago. I thought it was going to be at Sonoma. That was going to be my guess. I thought Bowman was going to get his next win at Sonoma. But, it was Chicago, and, I can see it. He had a great run at COTA a couple years ago. He's never been awful at the road courses. I think when you're a driver that starts out at an underfunded back market organization, I think you learn how to be good at road courses and super speedways because that's where you're going to have the best chances to reel in good finishes. So I think Bowman's been good at road courses ever since his BK days. But, so my driver of the day, Alex Bowman, first win in 2 years. He was already above the cut line. He probably didn't need the win, but it's sure as shit gonna help and getting some playoff points going in. So, yeah, good for him.
So I've got a lot. To be quite honest, my driver of the day is going to be Noah Gragson. And I say Noah Gragson because he was the only SHR driver not in the barriers at any point in the race. So that in my opinion is a huge win. Specifically when you look at how his race last year went. He was in the turn 6 barriers not once, not twice, but 3 times. So that's my driver of the day. My Menace of the day, I got a few. Number 1, Chase Briscoe. I agree with you, Chase Briscoe. I mean, the first incident that he had, he took out SVG because apparently he forgot what a brake pedal was, because I guess he couldn't see his brake marker. Well, if you can't see your brake marker, you typically should brake sooner. I don't know. It's getting to be ridiculous with that guy, in my opinion. He's done a lot of really dumb stuff. So that's number 1. Number 2, Daniel Suarez, for not even attempting to pass Chase Elliott. Just flat out dumped him going in the final corner.
Yeah.
That's another one. You just can't do that. I mean, you can, but expect some retaliation, I guess. I think another one. I think another driver of the day that I'm going to give out to is Jesse Love. That dude.
Yeah, dude. Like on a road course, like that was a crazy run.
That guy. I heard about him when he was in ARCA. I know he won the ARCA championship, and I was weary because he would be essentially, in my opinion, going down in equipment, because I think he was a Toyota development driver, and then he went to RCR. And I thought for a fact that with the way that Sheldon Creed ran his season for the past couple seasons, that he was a teammate with Austin Hill, that he was going to kind of turn out to be kind of like the same thing. Have some good runs here and there, but constantly get his ass kicked by Austin Hill. And I will say this. He, in my opinion, is kicking Austin Hill's ass almost on a weekly basis.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, Hill, I feel like can muster better results just because of his experience, but Love has more pace. I would agree. I don't disagree with you. I think week in and week out, Love has more raw speed.
Yeah.
Just makes mistakes, and Hill probably gets the better of him because he's a rookie and Hill isn't. But Love, when they unpack off the truck, that too is faster than the 21.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think they said in Nashville he passed a total of 69 cars,
which is insane.
Absolutely insane. I mean,
Nashville, that's tough.
Yeah,
Nashville is such a hard track to make passes at.
Yeah, so that's another driver of the day, because doing that on a road course, going head to head with one of the best in the business on a street course, SVG.
Yeah, and Larson was up there too,
and holding off Ty Gibbs,
champion.
Yeah, that's not easy.
Hell no.
So,
and the track he's never been to, mind you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another driver of the day, and I'm gonna give another one out. Connor Mozak, highest finishing junior motorsports car. Who'd have thought that?
Yeah, and how about my boy? Another top 10 from my boy, 32.
That guy is so quiet. They don't even talk to him. They don't even talk about him on the broadcast 90% of the time.
Dude, but he's fast, man. That's my dude.
He's fast and he's quiet. He's sneaky.
Yeah, for sure.
So
That's why I like him. Shout out Austin Green. Hopefully we'll see you around for a long time to come, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You're great on the road courses.
So, well, that is it for driver and menace of the day. We will go straight to the race recap. We had some absolutely incredible racing in the Xfinity series. I know we mentioned it a couple times, but in my opinion, this was top 5 best Xfinity race I've ever seen.
Ever. Like, ever. In 40 years.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know a lot of people criticize other sports for not being able to touch each other. If they turn each other or wreck each other or whatever, it's a penalty. I personally think that as BS as it seems in the moment, when you take a driver that used to drive in a series that was like that and you stick him in another series that allows it, like NASCAR, you see the kind of racing that we were given. Shane Van Gisbergen knows how to pass cars without putting the bumper to them. And that's incredible. It puts on for a hell of a show. So.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, just great. I mean, and SVG has... I mean, let's be real, man. He's perfected that freaking crossover. I mean, that is one of the cleanest dang moves. And it's like you said, you can do it clean.
Yeah.
And it is just so fun to watch.
Yeah. So, needless to say, Shane Van Gisbergen won the pole. Kyle Larson, second on the outside. They traded the lead multiple times in turn 2, off of turn 4, and SVG once again would retake the lead in turn 6. But by lap 3, Kyle Larson would get the lead from SVG in turn number 2 and take the lead in turn 4. He would get the position in turn 2, and finally get the lead in turn 4. By lap 6, SVG would retake the lead from Kyle Larson in turn 12 after Kyle Larson locked up the right front and entering the corner. Chandler Smith, unfortunately, pitted from the 8th position just on lap 6 as he was down a cylinder. On lap 7, Matt DiBenedetto spun in turn number 4 and kept going, but we did get a caution for debris. All the leaders would pit, but some of the back markers in the field would, of course, come down pit road. We would get the restart on lap 11. Shane Van Gisbergen would lead on the inside, Kyle Larson on the outside. Anthony Alfredo dives into turn number 1 and takes the lead, but locks up the brakes, and SVG would return to the lead with Kyle Larson around the outside of turn number 5. Would try to pull even. Kyle Larson would then take the lead off of turn number 6, and Kyle Larson would keep the lead for a small amount of time. In turn 11, Josh Bilicki would spin from 27th. Jeremy Clements would get heavy damage on the nose of his car. On lap 12, Justin Allgaier would pit under green to start green flag pit stops, but he would get spun coming onto pit road from the 25th position after contact with Ryan Sieg. And on lap 13, Riley Herbst runs Sheldon Creed wide in turn 2. Sheldon Creed hits the wall, and Riley Herbst would then spin from the 11th position after contact from 18th in turn number 3. On lap 15, Kyle Larson and SVG would be even on the straightaway between turn 5 and turn 6. Shane Van Gisbergen would then pass Kyle Larson in turn number 17 to take the lead, and Shane Van Gisbergen would win stage number 1. So, of course, the caution would come out once again. this time for the stage break, and most of the leaders would come down pit road and pit. Some of the Preston Pardis and Sage Karam would get a penalty for passing. It says that they were also under penalty. Cole Custer would get penalized for passing in the pit lane. That's a little odd one there. I never heard of that one, but I guess
that was weird. That was a whole thing.
I don't know if he was caught passing entering pit road. That might have been a thing. But
no, it was on pit road, and it was because Gibbs slowed down, and it wasn't Custer's fault. Gibbs was in first gear. Gibbs didn't realize he was in first gear, and he was in first gear, so Custer went around him because he was going 10 miles an hour slower, and then NASCAR said, no, you can't do that. We said you can't do that. It doesn't matter how fast he's going. And, there was the 00 team. They threw a fit about that one, but NASCAR ultimately ruled in favor of the rule that was in place, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know what rule that is, but I've never heard of that.
Apparently, at that track, you can't pass on the left on pit road until someone has committed to their pit box. So, they're in the right lane, I guess. It was so freaking weird.
Yeah, that's an odd one. Well, we would get the restart on lap 19. Shane Van Gisbergen would lead once again with Kyle Larson second on the outside. And Kyle Larson once again would take the lead in turn 1. But by lap 22, Shane Van Gisbergen crosses Kyle Larson over in turn 1. Can't make the pass into turn 2. But AJ Allmendinger in turn number 6 wheel hops it and slams into the tire barriers, bringing out the caution. He was third at the time and destroyed the rear end of that car. That, I guess, shows just how difficult this track is when an experienced guy like AJ Allmendinger makes a mistake. That's a guy that you don't really see make mistakes, specifically on road courses. He's typically very clean and proper. So to see something like that happen to a guy with such experience goes to show you just how good those two cars were in front of him.
Yeah, for sure. That's what they were saying on the broadcast, too, that just shows you how fast they were and how much AJ was trying to keep up.
Yeah. Well, of course, we would get the restart on lap 26. Before that, I should mention that the leaders did, in fact, pit. So Kyle Larson and SVG, along with some other guys, as Connor Mozak, Josh Williams, and Daniel Suarez, along a host of others, would, of course, pit under that caution. So, coming to get the restart would be new leader Sammy Smith. He would be on the inside, and Austin Hill would be second. Although he did have radio trouble. The two drivers that dominated this race early, Kyle Larson and Shane Van Gisbergen, would restart 17th and 20th. Austin Hill would take the lead in turn number 1 after that restart. But by lap 29, Shane Van Gisbergen would pass Kyle Larson for 10th off of turn number 7. But just a lap later, Austin Hill would win stage number 2. And Cole Custer, coming off of turn number 12, would spin, and he would be 14th at the time, and he would fall to 26th to end the stage. We would have some of those leaders pit, those leaders being Sammy Smith, Justin Allgaier, Parker Retzloff, Jeff Burton, Josh Balicki, Cole Custer, and Matt DiBenedetto. Those guys would, of course, pit while others would stay out. We would get the restart on lap 35. Austin Hill would lead on the outside. Jesse Love second on the inside. Jesse Love would take the inside line in turn number 2 and take the lead. Ty Gibbs would be able to get the position on Austin Hill for second, so Austin Hill would fall to third. But by lap 36, there would be a huge crash going into turn number 12. Sage Karam would get into the back of Josh Balicki, who goes into the back of Kyle Sieg, who then got in the back of Andre Castro, and Parker Retzloff also made contact. So we had a huge stack up in a small section of a parking lot in turn 12. That, of course, would bring out the caution. So we would get the restart on lap 40. Jesse Love would lead on the inside. Ty Gibbs second on the outside. Austin Hill would be on the inside in row 2, followed by Sheldon Creed. AJ Allmendinger would get into the 42 of Leland Honeyman, entering turn 2, making contact with Brandon Jones, who's had such a dismal season, and he, of course, would be the one to go around. Preston Pardis, unfortunately, would stop in turn number 12 with no power, and, of course, the caution would fly for his stranded vehicle. So we would get the restart once again on lap 43. Jesse Love would be on the inside. Austin Hill would be second on the outside. Ty Gibbs would pass Austin Hill for second in turn 3. Shane Van Gisbergen would be passing him for the 4th position in turn number 7. And Shane Van Gisbergen would go under Sheldon Creed in turn 11 and make the pass. Sam Mayer, going into turn 11, would get into the back of Shane Van Gisbergen coming off of turn 12, I should say, after Shane Van Gisbergen just barely scratched the turn 12 wall. He kept it in third, but he would fall back to 1.3 seconds behind the leader, and to his avail, the 42 of Leland Honeyman would go into the turn 1 tire barrier from 19th, right after a right front tire would go flat, and that would bring out the caution, bunching up the field once again. On lap 48, the restart, we would get Jesse Love leading the field back to green, Ty Gibbs second on the outside, Shane Van Gisbergen third. Shane Van Gisbergen would make an impressive move on Ty Gibbs for second in turn number 1. Sam Mayer would also spin from 4th in turn 1. Shane Van Gisbergen would get the position off of turn 6 and pass Jesse Love for the lead in turn 7. Sheldon Creed would get spun from 5th in turn 12 after contact with Parker Kligerman. And of course, no one would be able to catch the master Shane Van Gisbergen as he would cross the line and capture his 3rd win of the season at Chicago. Up until this point, he was undefeated on the streets of Chicago. And of course, with his 3rd win of the season, he takes over the points lead. And not only that, but he takes the lead in the playoffs. How about that?
Yeah, I never would have, if you would have told me that Shane Van Gisbergen would be the wins leader at this point in the season and the points leader at this point in the season, I would have been like, eh. Like, I didn't think he was going to be, like, shit. Like, I thought he was going to win maybe 1 or 2 races on a road course, have some strong finishes on ovals, you know, be a 1st or 2nd round exit from the playoffs. But, I mean, you know, Lil Bro ran 3rd at Atlanta. He's the points leader right now. He's the wins leader. I mean, I just did not expect it just to happen this quick. Like, yeah. I knew the talent was there. I knew he could be great. I just didn't expect it to happen this quick. So yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I mean, when you watch him on an oval, he's not particularly great in stage 1. He's learning the car. He's learning the track. Stage 2, you can see it starts to pick up. He's starting to get comfortable. Stage 3, he's comfortable. He knows what the car is going to do. He knows the track now, and that's when he goes into attack mode. And somehow, some way, at the end of these races, he ends up being fantastic. You know, he gets good finishes, top 15, top 10s. You know, if you were to tell me going into this season that Shane Van Gisbergen would essentially be the one that would be carrying Kaulig Racing in the Xfinity Series, I would have told you that you were crazy. You know, winless for the other 2 drivers. That's not something that you hear all too often. So, massive, impressive stuff from Shane Van Gisbergen. Well, we had some...
Yeah, agree. Sorry, I was late on unmuting my mic. Yeah, agree. Massively impressive to be the focal point at Kaulig Racing this year in this rookie season. That's awesome. Yeah. Impressive for sure.
And I want to add something before we get into the Cup race. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not a contender to win this weekend, because, as you know, Pocono races like a road course. The teams treat this race as a road course. You race the track like a road course. You downshift in 2 of the 3 corners. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a factor this weekend.
Could be. We'll see how it shakes out. And fuel mileage, too. We know this is a big fuel mileage race, and that can often lead to upset winners.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
So, going into the weekend, well, I should say going into the start of Sunday's race, we had a bunch of cars that would have to go to the rear for unapproved adjustments. The 4, the 6, the 7, the 12, the 17, the 21, the 24, the 43, and the 66 would all have to go to the rear of the field. All but the 66 were for unapproved adjustments. The 66 had dropped to the rear of the field after multiple inspection failures. So those drivers had to start this race from the rear. Kyle Larson would lead the field to green, with Ty Gibbs second on the start of this one. As I said before, this one was interesting. So before we get to green, I should say that NASCAR did allow these teams to make a choice. They could either stay on wet weather tires, or they could stay on slicks. NASCAR said they could make the change, but they could only do it once. So NASCAR said to pit for, before the race, NASCAR made all the teams switch to wet weather tires. Then they gave them the option the next time around to make one pit stop, and they would be able to keep their starting position. But if they were unhappy with that change that they made, if they elected to pit once again, they would have to go to the rear of the field. So that would, of course, be a little difficult and different to understand. So just wanted to clear that up. Kyle Larson would lead the field to the green from the outside, with Ty Gibbs second on the inside. And Ty Gibbs would get the jump on Kyle Larson and take the lead from Kyle Larson in turn number 1. On lap 4, Michael McDowell would pit from 8th for wet tires along with Ryan Preece. On lap 5, rain would be falling on the north end of the track from turns 9 through 12. On lap 7, Corey LaJoie would pit from the 30th position after sustaining some right front damage. So he would pit. On lap 11, Shane Van Gisbergen would have driven from his 4th starting position up to within a half a second of Ty Gibbs into the 2nd position for the lead. And by lap 12, the leaders caught the tail end of the field, passing cars that were more than 5 seconds a lap slower on wet tires. Shane Van Gisbergen would dive bomb Ty Gibbs going into turn 12. Ty Gibbs got held up on corner exit by Ryan Preece, and Shane Van Gisbergen would take the lead. Joey Logano, Ryan Preece, Eric Jones were all on wet weather tires. They would all go one lap down, and Harrison Burton would go down a second lap. Well, by lap 17, Corey LaJoie would spin from 29th in turn 11. I should say on the exit of turn 11, and he would hit the wall, bringing out the caution as he would be stuck there and couldn't get the car re-righted, I should say. By lap 19, the field would continue to circulate under caution to end the stage due to the fact that rain was beginning to fall around the course. And Shane Van Gisbergen would win stage number 1. And on lap 21, Zane Smith would stay out. He would stay out as one of the cars on dry tires. Most of the rest of the field would, of course, pit. There would be a bottleneck exiting pit road. Tyler Reddick slides into the back of Bubba Wallace. And, of course, we would get the restart on lap 25. Zane Smith leads on the inside. Christopher Bell second on the outside. Ty Gibbs passes Zane Smith for the lead. Bubba Wallace spins at the exit of turn 2 after he got a little contact from Alex Bowman. He spins exiting turn 2, coming across the track, hitting Daniel Suarez, blocking the track. Chase Briscoe runs into the back of Shane Van Gisbergen in turn 6. Briscoe slides, slams the tire barrier, and unfortunately, the favorite to win the race, Shane Van Gisbergen, slams the outside wall in turn 6, missing the tire barrier, and that would be day over for the favorite entering this race. Shane Van Gisbergen would be done for the day. Chase Briscoe would be able to continue, but not for much longer, because just a lap later, Bubba Wallace would pit for repairs for his car, and unfortunately, the rain would be too heavy, and the cars would be brought down pit road and stopped, allowing track crews to blow off standing water on the track. Unfortunately, the rain would just continue to pulverize the track as the cars would be under the red flag. Drivers would return to their cars an hour and 15 minutes later after into the red flag. The restart was then called off because we had another shower come through the track. The cars would return to the track under the caution flag after a 1 hour and 43 minute red flag. The teams would then be told they would run until 8:20 local time. When they got that notification, it was currently 7:15 local time. We had some drivers like William Byron, Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez, Joey Logano, who would pit for new wet weather tires, and we would finally get the restart. This time, NASCAR said that the restarts would be single file to help eliminate the spray, or at least help with the spray. Ty Gibbs would lead the field back to green. Christopher Bell would be second. Christopher Bell would get position on the inside of Ty Gibbs, taking the lead in turn number 6. Eric Jones would pit with a loose rear wheel. Denny Hamlin locks the rear brakes and gets into the back of Ricky Stenhouse, and those two drivers would spin and slam into the tire barrier in turn 6 from 14th and 15th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Denny Hamlin would, of course, get their cars rolling after they did sit there for quite a while. On lap 31, Ty Gibbs and Kyle Larson would be battling for second, as Christopher Bell was out to well of a second lead, but just 3 laps later, Kyle Larson, who was third, locks his brakes up going into turn number 6 and slams into the tire barrier, windshield deep, and his car was stuck. They had to bring him out. They had to tow his car out. Unfortunately, the damage was just too much, and that would be day done for the second favorite entering the weekend, Kyle Larson. He would be done after he stops his car in turn number 8. 2 of the favorites out early. Anyone's race now. Lap 38, we would get the restart, of course, single file once again. Christopher Bell would lead. Ty Gibbs would be second. And, of course, Josh Berry, who was 28th, would go straight into the turn 4 wall. Chase Briscoe, who was 34th at the time, also went off course in turn number 4. Both cars would remain, the race would remain green, and both cars would be able to continue. But just 2 laps later, the other Shorthouse car of Ryan Preece would lock his brakes and slam into turn 6 from 27th. He would hit the tire barrier, but would also be able to continue. By lap 42, Austin Dillon, Chase Elliott, Austin Hill, Kyle Busch, Michael McDowell, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Zane Smith, Austin Cindric, Daniel Suarez, and Bubba Wallace would all pit for dry tires, hoping to flip the stage. And, of course, others would pit on lap 43 and 44. But on lap 45, Joey the Hand would win stage number 2. How about that? On lap 49, the single file restart once again would lead Alex Bowman for second. And on lap 50, Joey Hand and Alex Bowman would pull away from first and second. AJ Allmendinger would spin in turn 12, goes into the tire barriers, but would be able to get the car moving and go straight to pit road. But on lap 51, Alex Bowman would pass Joey Hand, outbraking him into turn number 5. Josh Berry, once again, the day struggles continue. He would be 16th at the time and crashed into the turn 2 tire barrier. He would be buried in the tires this time, and he unfortunately would bring out the caution once again. We would get the restart just 4 laps later, and Alex Bowman would lead with 4 minutes and 30 seconds remaining in race time. They were given a scheduled time distance. Chase Briscoe would spin in turn number 1 and keep going. John Hunter Nemechek would clip the tire barriers in turn 2. He would get stuck, almost like Tony Stewart, up on top of the tires. Somehow, someway, he would be able to get the car off those tires and continue without bringing out a caution. On lap 55, Christopher Bell, who did pit for dry tires, moved his way up to 6th. And unfortunately, he and Martin Truex Jr. would get together in turn 2. Martin Truex Jr. would turn Christopher Bell, who was hit by then Carson Hocevar. Everyone was able to continue. On lap 56, Denny Hamlin, who was 19th, and Austin Hill, who were 18th, would get together and slam under the turn 1 tire barriers. They would be able to continue. Alex Bowman crosses the line with the clock struck at 0. That would then mean 2 laps to go. The next flag would be the white flag. On lap 57, Tyler Reddick and Ty Gibbs pass Joey Hand for second and third on dry tires. Alex Bowman takes the white flag. And on lap 58, Alex Bowman goes wide in turn 5. Tyler Reddick goes wide in turn 5, makes contact with the wall, allowing Alex Bowman to build a 3-second lead. And Alex Bowman, after a 2-year hiatus from wins, finally captures the checkered flag first. Coming off of turn number 12, Chase Elliott gets spun by Daniel Suarez. And of course, under the cooldown laps, Bubba Wallace intentionally runs into the side of Alex Bowman in retaliation to a spin earlier in the race. And of course, that was day over for Chicago. Once again, the Chicago street course was in wraps. That was definitely eventful.
Yeah, one of the things I liked in terms of the officiating is I liked how when the clock ran out, it became 2 to go and not the white flag. I think that made it more official and more like they had time to do stuff and have like a race and kind of set stuff up. I know the kind of the IMSA rules or like the GT rules is like where, when the clock hits 0, it's the white when the leader gets back to the line, whenever that may be, wherever they're at in the lap. But I like how I like the way they did it. I think it seemed more official. It was really, to my knowledge, I think this was the second time they played around with something like this. I think it would have been, Loudon, 3 years ago. Loudon 3 years ago would have been the first time, and I think they did it so much better this time around.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion.
In my opinion, when you brought that up, it was when the race gets too dark. Well, who says it's too dark? Then they just decided, hey, we're going to throw 10 to go out of the hat. And then of course that race was won by Eric Almirola. This one in particular, I really like the fact that it was so early in the race. Still, they said this is how much time we have left. This is the countdown. When the clock strikes 0, we're going to run 2 more laps. The race will then then when the leader crosses the next lap, that's the white flag lap. If the caution comes out, the race is over. There is no more. There will be no overtime. I love that. There was no overtime. This is it. This is the scheduled distance. That's it. The race is over. I love the fact that they gave the teams the heads up on that so early, so the teams knew what they were doing. As opposed to last year, they just said, "Hey, we're going to run until it's dark, and then we're going to shorten it to this many laps, and this is it. It's done." So, I like that. So, I would say the officiating was okay. I would say I didn't like the fact that they decided to go green after the before we went to the red flag. I didn't like the fact that they restarted double file. Obviously, they knew the track was soaked, and they decided to go double file anyway and took out arguably the best car there by a guy who's, typical at ruining people's races and wins and everything else like that. So, like I said, I'm not too pleased with Chase Briscoe at the moment. I don't know. In my personal opinion, I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting, but in my personal opinion, I think, as a race car driver, if you can't see your brake marker, you probably get off the gas a lot sooner. Probably be a little more ginger on the brakes and the throttle, but I guess not to him. He's balls to the walls. So, I don't know. He's a professional. I'm not. So. Well, that's it for the race recap. We will go to race picks. All right. Well, you picked Austin Dillon, who surprisingly didn't finish too bad. I picked Shane Van Gisbergen, who finished last, 40th.
So I somehow won. I feel like I lucked into that one because of the DNF, but
Yeah.
But yeah. Wait, so does that mean it's on me?
Yes, sir. It's on you. Go ahead.
All right, Pocono Cup. I'm taking Larson. I think he gets the one that he should have got 3 years ago. I mean, I think you can pick Larson every week. It's never going to be a bad pick. I think he gets that Pocono redemption this year. Xfinity, I'm going same driver, second year in a row. I'm picking Brandon Jones again. I think the team's building momentum. Big Brandon Jones fan. Pocono is a great track for him. He's got a win there in the Truck Series. I think this is when Brandon Jones gets his first win with JRM. And trucks, I'm taking a ringer, taking Ross Chastain in the Nice truck, 45.
All right. Well, you took my pick for Cup. So let's see. Who is all running this week? I gotta check the entry list. You know what? Let's see. That's difficult, man. Fuck it. Larson. I'm sorry.
Let's do it.
I gotta pick Larson. I'm sorry. I look,
You got it.
as much as I would want to pick somebody else, I just don't think. When you look at the race last year, there was no Chevrolet that was able to put up a fight against the Toyotas more consistently than Kyle Larson. The Fords were stuck about sixth on back. They could never break into the top five. And like I said, the Chevrolets, they were decent, but they weren't great. And the only one that was really up there, the only one that was up there was really Larson, and I think the only other one that was up there was Ross Chastain.
Cam, you muted. After you said up there, you muted.
Oh, I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
I'm still muted.
Can you hear me now?
It's on. Oh no, there you are. Yep, there you are. We got you.
Yeah. So, you know, Larson was really like the only one that was up there. I think the only other one that was up there was Ross Chastain. So, you know, you gotta go Larson. Sorry.
Hey, no shame in that. Great driver, one of the best. Can never count him out.
Let's see. Xfinity, you pick Brandon Jones. I'm gonna go teammate to Brandon Jones. I'm gonna go Justin Allgaier. I think Justin Allgaier gets it done.
Cool.
I don't think he's won at Pocono, to my knowledge. So I think he finally breaks through. Trucks, again, I don't watch trucks. I'm just gonna go off on a limb and say Christian Eckes.
Hey, he's on the pole. Your man's on the pole. Rain just washed out qualifying a couple hours ago. Your man's on the pole this week.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I think that's pretty much it. If you want to watch these races, as of recording this, the truck race is currently on. So I'm assuming you're listening to this, or you're watching that. It is currently on FS1. It's going on right now, so I can't give you the time as to when it started because it's already on. The Xfinity Race.
As of recording this, time is your leader, lap 18.
Yeah. So, let's see. The Xfinity Race will be on tomorrow, Saturday. That's when this will be released. It starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific Time. And of course, the Cup race will start bright and early on the East Coast, or on the West Coast, excuse me. It starts at 1:30 p.m. On the East Coast. That's 11:30 a.m. on the West Coast. So, those two races, I forgot to mention, will be on USA. So, it'll be a fun one. So, I will say this: make sure to follow us on Instagram. Our tag will be in the description. Follow us on Instagram for more updates on breaking news and video versions of the race recap, and other stuff. So make sure you follow us there. Make sure that you subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Aaron, I know you're really the one that's running that thing, but it's
White Flag Broadcasting. We'll be streaming our first Cup race for the Jones Shine Cup Series on iRacing next week. We're hoping, we wanted to start this week, but I had so much going on and didn't have things in order. We're hoping next week we will be broadcasting our first Cup race over there, and we'll be doing a lot of cool stuff over there. Cam and I both hoping to do a lot of cool stuff over there with on the podcast side of things too. Yeah. And maybe doing some highlights and stuff like that. So we're gonna try to build an empire. See how it goes.
Yeah. So make sure you go subscribe to that. It's the White Flag Broadcasting on YouTube. So go check us out. Go subscribe. This podcast, as well as last week's podcast, will be uploaded in video form. So for those who want to listen to it on YouTube, you now can. So it'll be a fun one. This weekend is going to be fun for sure. So, we'll see you guys next week, and enjoy this weekend. Bye, everybody.
Peace out, guys.